I need you to kill somebody. Beat him so hard he can't scream, and when you're done, take his teeth out in exchange for your pay.
Is this contract an illegal contract? Is it enforceable in court? What are the legal consequences of such a contract? These and more will this video cover on illegal and void contracts with decided cases. Grab your pen and paper. Let's dive in. First, let's define these terms. A contract can be rendered ineffective if it involves doing something illegal or goes against public policy. According to Anson, an illegal contract is one invalidated by statute or common law rules. This makes it void. But what's the difference between illegal and void contracts? Let's explore. An illegal act, as defined by Osborne's dictionary, is an unlawful act which the law forbids, like committing murder or obstructing a highway. A void contract is an act or state of things the law disregards, or doesn't recognize as capable of giving rise to rights. For example, a contract made ultra vires, or beyond the powers of the parties involved, is void but not necessarily illegal. An immoral consideration also makes a contract void. In Pasco International Limited versus Unity Bank PLC, the term illegality, jurisprudentially, denotes an act forbidden, not authorized, by law. It is the state of not being legally authorized. Also, in Dumoulin Investment Limited versus UBGL PLC, Augie, Jessia, as she then was, described an illegal contract as one prohibited by statute or common law coupled with provisions for sanctions such as fine, imprisonment in the event of its contravention. Void contracts, on the other hand, refers to a contract with absolute no legal effect whether to enforcement of right or as to remedy. Simply stated, void contracts are those contracts which had not been expressly prohibited and which attracts no sanctions but however, do not give rise to any right whatsoever. In ACB Limited versus Allow, the Court of Appeal sitting in Lagos Judicial Division held thus: it is settled law that with a contract which the plaintiff seeks to enforce whether express or by implication forbidden by law, no court will lend its assurance to give it effect. To further clarify, while void contracts don't grant any legal rights, illegal contracts often result in sanctions. Let's look at an example from the 1893 Sales of Goods Act. If a third party fails to set a price in a sale agreement, the contract is void. A notable case, Thurwell versus Oyewunmi, amplified the distinction. Akanbi JCA explained that void contracts declared by statute aren't illegal unless a penalty is involved. Illegal contracts usually follow with sanctions. Unlike void contracts, there are periods or stages of identification or determination of illegality. 1. During the formation of the contract. 2. Performance or execution of the contract. 3. Consideration. 4. Purpose of the object. Also, who can benefit from an illegal contract? A party to a contract after reaping the benefit to the contract cannot be have to allege that the transaction is illegal when it is her turn to fulfill obligation under the contract. Courts will not enforce an illegal contract. Money paid or property transferred under an illegal contract cannot normally be recovered. There are exceptions, however. For example, where a contract is made illegal by a statute passed for the protection of a class of people, a member of that class can get back money paid or property transferred by her or him under the contract. Nullus commodum capere potest ex injurius sua propria. This means no one can benefit from his own wrong. Ex turpi causa non order actio is a legal maxim from Latin, which translates to from a dishonorable cause. No action arises. This principle means that a legal claim cannot be founded on an illegal or immoral act. In other words, courts will not assist a claimant who bases their cause of action on their own illegal or immoral act. Now, let's classify illegal and void contracts. There are 3 main categories. 1. Contracts illegal by statute. 2. Contracts illegal at common law. 3. Contracts void at common law. Now to contracts illegal by statute. These can include contracts expressly forbidden by law, like dealing in foreign exchange without permission. In Sadapo versus Lemikanen, the court refused to enforce a loan repayment in foreign currency without proper authorization, deeming it illegal. Statutes regulating specific trades or professions also make certain contracts illegal. For example, under the Land Use Act, transferring land without permission is illegal. In Canfela versus Chayan, a construction contract violating building permits was deemed illegal. Similarly, renting up crown land without government approval led to void contracts, as seen in Samwari ESI versus Maruku. Laws protecting specific groups, like the Illiterates Protection Act, can render contracts illegal if violated. In UAC Nigeria Limited versus Edems, non-compliance with the act made the contract void. Revenue-raising statutes are interesting. They don't prohibit contracts, but impose penalties for non-compliance. In Smith v. Manhood, a tobacconist without a license could still recover the price of sold tobacco despite penalties. Contracts illegal at common law are based on centuries-old public policy policy grounds. These include contracts to commit crimes, prejudice marriage, public safety or justice, and promote corruption or defraud the state. In Allen versus Reskus, a contract to assault someone was void and unlawful. In Spears versus Hunt, a promise to marry after one's spouse's death was deemed illegal for encouraging immorality. So, what happens with illegal contracts? They're void from the start, meaning neither party can enforce them. In cases like Everett versus Williams, involving a robbery partnership, the courts won't assist in illegal agreements. However, there are exceptions. Courts may assist if the violated law protects the plaintiff. There's a fiduciary relationship. The claim is based on other grounds, or if the plaintiff repents before the contract is performed. Contracts void at common law fall into three categories. 1. Sexually immoral contracts. 2. Contracts to oust court jurisdiction. 3. Contracts in restraint of trade. For instance, in Upfield versus Wright, a landlord couldn't recover rent from a known mistress of another man. Contracts in restraint of trade are particularly nuanced. They're valid if reasonable and not contrary to public interest, as seen in Leonidaritis versus Nigerian Textile Mills Limited. Subscribe to get my next video on duress and undue influence.